Our next speaker is also Chris de Koning. We'll talk a little bit about that and when he's going to be speaking about technology and how technology is influenced and maybe how it will in the future. You also are here, correct? Yeah, that one technology. That one. Right. See on the screen here. On a whole. That one on. Those pretty dark people can't really see. Christian, is there a way to have the those lights on but not as this one as bright? No. I can make these ones. Slightly bright. Yeah. All right. You can click through on that. Okay. Right, everyone. Yes, I'm the historical guy for the society, and in the last year or two, I started reading through every minute of the society for the last 100 years. Luckily, we got hold of the minute books, and there's only, I think, about 6 years missing. But for most of that, all those minutes, okay, I must say I haven't read the last 20 years, so about 80 of the 100 years I've read through, and some things started cropping up and became interesting, and I wanted to know more, and that's how I got onto how technology influenced ASSA, how the society changed over time due to technology. So this is now the centenary of ASSA. The society is 100 years old, and that was on the 1st of July 1922 that it was created. So 1st of July 2022, we had the centenary. So now we are a few months later on, and if I read my Julian day calendar correct, we are today, on the 15th of October, 36,631 days old. Right, I hope I interpreted my Julian day calendar correctly. Right, so I just want to talk a little bit about the nature of astronomical societies before I go on to how technology influences it. Now, we're a mixed group of people sitting here come from all walks of life, etc. And at first, oh, I see okay, this doesn't throw it out exactly as it was on my computer, but okay. First point there, membership potentially cuts across every sector of society. So basically, every race, religion, gender, etc., should be represented in a society like an astronomical society. So we're very diverse. Every profession should be represented. So you would have teachers, lawyers, medical doctors, tour guides, and can you believe it that an astronomical society may even include professional astronomers as a profession, right? So the nature of a society is to take very diverse people and bring them together with the same interest. Okay, not every age group is represented. They're the very small and the very elderly sort of not represented, but everything in between, from 12-year-old schoolboys in Finland right through to right till close to the end, if I can say that way. But we all love astronomy. That's one thing that brings the diversity together. We're inquisitive about not just the world, but more than the world. What is out there? How do we fit into the greater scheme of things? Okay, so that's just a little bit on the nature. Contrast, 100 years ago to today. There's a photo of Skellerup. All the photos that I have of astronomers 100 years ago, they dare not be in a photo not properly attired with a dress and a suit and everything. And this is the 2012 symposium that was held here in Cape Town and look at the difference in attire, and it's a different world 100 years ago to today. Then technology. I don't have to say anything about technology. There is Taylor's Observatory, nice scope, etc. But to put a camera on that was probably unthinkable or very difficult. This right-hand side one I just got off a WhatsApp chat group, astronomy group, and I think it will say it all. You start plugging and playing, and you've got all your settings, and everything is there, and you can put a spectrograph on there, never mind a camera and an eyepiece. Not everyone even uses eyepiece anymore. So I'm not going to talk about the technological differences then and now. I think it's obvious to everyone sitting here. It's a different world we live in today. Then scientific preconceptions. When the society started 100 years ago, the attitude of scientists still was that scientific laws are absolute and immutable. And Newton's law of gravity is an absolute fact. And along came Einstein, the 1919 Eddington expedition that proved Einstein correct. And suddenly the absoluteness of these laws and everything started falling by the wayside. Now we're arguing, is light a particle or a wave? You know, that absolute certainty started disappearing. And today, scientists readily admit when you solve a problem, you actually create more questions than you don't, you know. So it's a totally different attitude today to 100 years ago. And the society reflects that to a large extent. Okay, so a little bit of background. The first astronomical society in South Africa was called the Cape Astronomical Association in 1912 that it was created. And everyone was very much influenced by the British model. You had the British Astronomical Association. They had a specific structure in a way. A lot of the members here belonged to the BAA, British Astronomical Association, so they called their one the Cape Astronomical Association. Terminology, everything based on the British. And then in 1918, a second society started, the Johannesburg Astronomical Association. And then we started diversifying, or we got more members from Zimbabwe, for example. In Zambia, the Copper Belt, there was a lot of people that joined the society, and they were all members of either the Cape or the Johannesburg Association. And they started realizing we better amalgamate. It's better for us to start a national body to incorporate people from very far away. And so on the 1st of July, 1922, these two societies or associations amalgamated to form ASSA, the Astronomical Society of South Africa. Now we call it Southern Africa. So the name has changed in 1959. And the Cape Astronomical Association is Cape Centre, based right here. And the Johannesburg Association became the Johannesburg Centre. So that's just a little bit of a background. And what's important is you have now had a national body. And then you had centres. You had the Cape Centre, Johannesburg Centre, and I'll in a moment get to some of the other centres. And then observing, based on observing sections. And like Tim Cooper was talking, the comet, meteor, and asteroid section. So they had section directors. But just interesting, at the time, 100 years ago, you had a comet section. You had a totally different meteor section. And it took 20, 30 years for, as science and technology developed, people started realizing it's the same thing. It's just a different lifestyle. The comet comes past, leaves pebbles behind, and that falls into our, so in time, comet and Protea became one section, but that initial realization wasn't there. And now it's even, the name includes asteroid, so comet, meteor, and asteroid section, okay? So all of that is how things change over the time. But what I want to concentrate on from here onwards is the national body, the Central Council of ASSA, and how that has changed. Okay, the first council meeting was held in a private residence, not too far from here, Roseland, Mr. Long's property, and that was at 8 o'clock in the evening. And the first council meeting of ASSA took place at his house. Later on, they moved to the observatory, or they had different premises in town at the Owl Club, the Photographic Society, etc. And then at one stage, the director said, "You can come to the observatory." And since then, the meetings has pretty much been over here. Okay, at that first meeting, based on the British system, this was the structure. You had an elected president. You had 3 vice presidents. Then you had the secretary, a librarian, a treasurer, and the honorable auditors. Okay, so that was the structure. And that structure remained pretty much the same, except that the librarian has fallen away. The centres, Cape Centre has got librarian, and Johannesburg, etc., but not the central body anymore. But now we've got a business business manager, a membership secretary. We've got a public relations officer. We've got some instruments. So we've got a curator of instruments. We've got scholarship, and we've got webmaster. Webmaster, of course, technology, internet. That is part of how things started changing over the time. And so the structure pretty much is very much the same 100 years later. But I'm just going to focus on council, the previous one, that is the elected president, vice president, treasurer. Those are posts within council, plus 8 members. And the 8 members is what I just want to focus on. You had 4 representing the Cape, because we were 2 societies that amalgamated. So the Cape got 4 seats and Johannesburg 4 seats. And in time, the Johannesburg, especially after 1929, when the Great Depression hit, Johannesburg is money orientated, etc. And they were far more influenced by the Great Depression. So membership numbers fell. So out of that 8 seats, Cape Town suddenly got 5 and then 6 because their numbers declined. And so they tried to keep it like democratic and equal and that type of thing. So all of that, things that we influenced. But now it becomes, we're shaking up the whole thing. The different centres have got representative on council. And now things are getting shaped up because suddenly there are more centres. So the 3rd centre, 1932, the Natal Centre, Durban, what we now call the Durban Centre, joined. 59, the Bloemfontein Centre. 65, Port Elizabeth Centre has come and gone and disappeared, but they were part of ASSA for a while. Salisbury Centre, which became Harare Centre, also became, well, due to politics and all that, defunct. Then the newest ones, the babies, the Garden Route Centre and the Hermanus Centre. So those are mainly the centres of ASSA, plus, of course, technology, travel, cities grew, and the centre became too big. They were spread all over the place, like Johannesburg. Some of their members came from Pretoria, etc. And if you know the Johannesburg traffic, it's hell on earth. So it's better to split in 2. And so you've got a Transvaal or Johannesburg Centre and a Pretoria Centre. Same happened with Pietermaritzburg, the second point there. Natal Midlands base broke off from the Natal Centre. And here in Cape Town, we had a breakaway centre because of traffic concern, the Helderberg Centre, but lasted only 3 years and also disappeared. Okay, so the Cape Centre at one stage split into two. So those are just a quick background of the centres now. To get back to having representation on council. Now imagine how the seat allocation in council had to adapt. It became a bit of a bureaucratic nightmare. Every time a new centre came along, you had to change the structure of council and things like that. And the meetings were physically held here in Cape Town. You're not in this building. This is more and more modern building. At that time, this was still a workshop, but we were out there where Kevin is now. What is that building? But I think most of you remember the building. And there were 6 to 10 meetings a year. And I just took the example of Harare. Imagine you are a representative from Harare. You've got to come and say your vote here in Cape Town and what have you. So it became an absolute nightmare. And before technology stepped in to save everyone, this was the situation. You had telephones. Remember the good old days of a long distance telephone call, and you had to budget because it was expensive, especially if you phone internationally. Yes, that was a big part of your salary gone for that month. So long distance telephones were there, they were expensive. Postal service was slow, but it was reliable. Your letter will get there unless the Titanic sank or something. Your letter will get to the other side. How different the days were in those days to today. But and then of course telegrams were used for emergency situations. So through communication, through telephones, etc., what council did is they made use of the Cape Centre. Here you had council having their meetings at this observatory. The Cape Centre was in the area, and we started using, I put up there at the top, alternatives, because that's a better language used, but in our documents we call it alternates, not alternatives, but alternates. And we appointed alternates. So the Cape Centre members were called upon to go to the meeting and represent one of these out of town members, whether he's from Johannesburg or Botswana or Harare or wherever. And through letter writing or telephone call, that guy would instruct you, yes, you've got to vote this or that way at the next meeting. So that's how we did it in those days. Okay, just a little bit of more. 1922 till 2010, the meetings were held here. And then the RICA, etc., the guys up Johannesburg wanted to have more say, and the focus of the society swung. And 2010 to 2013, the council meetings were held in Johannesburg. And then technology came into play. And today, the third point, 2013 to today, we have digital medias. Meetings. First we use Skype and then Jitsi, but the point I want to make is we actually started with this before COVID. COVID changed everything. Zoom meetings, all that became common, but the council actually instituted this before COVID came around. So I am on nearly the last slide of mine. I haven't got a very long talk, but these are from meetings. Which one is, there we go. The first, that the CCO stands for Council, 1994-02. So that's the 8th of February, 1994, that I got these different things out of council. So at the council meeting in 1994, Dani Oeverbeek suggested, a formal suggestion written in our minutes and everything, that ASSA converts to the electronic media for communication such as email. That was what we see today as common sense. Somebody had to think of and push council into the directive. And Dani Oeverbeek suggested we started using emails, and that become a formal part of society. Groundbreaking. The other day I saw Rob Wilfred be Donnie's son. And I told him that, and Rob said to me, "What? My dad hated emails. I can't believe that he would make such a suggestion." But anyway, so that's how we started with popping an email, and that email would be an accepted means of communication. Then Alke Slotergraaf established a website. As you can see, that was 1998 that we started the website. Kees Reisbeek proposed that council accepts technology and that in an emergency, emails can be used to resolve the situation. Before this, if there was an emergency, either you called a special meeting or it had to wait over a month or two before everyone could, right? And now you could just pop somebody an email and it's an accepted way of doing things. That was an official proposal to council by Kees Reisbeek. And then Pat Booth proposes that we actually reflected in the Constitution, that this becomes constitutionalized and it becomes right. So these are little things of just going digital that popped up over the years. And now, the proposal to use video conferencing for meetings in 26. We only got around using Zoom meetings in 2013, but from 26, we started looking at that. So, right, what I want to say, basically, I'm now, just to conclude my talk, the structure of council has greatly changed due to technology. Technology can be a saving grace, and it made things much easier. And as I say, there's a second point. What seems like common sense today was actually somebody had to push and get the old people to think and say that will work. Technology streamlined communication in council and even made this symposium. We realized we're breaking ground today. Our first symposium that is digital for ASSA. I've attended other symposiums, but they were not ASSA. This is the first ASSA digital symposium where we've got the choice of physically coming here or attending it from home. So groundbreaking, Daniel, very, very good. And basically, another function is what Alke talked about, the handbook, Manasseh, and all that. 100 years ago, if you were an amateur, I'm not talking about professional strong, but an amateur, and you wanted to know what's happening in the world of science, what's the latest thing, you had no access to those information. You had to join a society, and the society would publish a journal, and the society on your behalf found the information, disseminated it, and gave it to you in an easy to understand way, like Alke talk now about how the handbook changed and all that. So the society played a crucial role. And the point I want to make is today, anyone with a link to internet can find 10 times more information than what the society provides us with. And you just go on to the James website and see what's the latest that's happening, etc., etc. In that sense, the society has lost its role. We are not the people to really disseminate and give information anymore. Technology has overtaken us. But as I put there, the last point, technology advances have made some of the functions of the society redundant. But technology solved many problems, like our meetings and communication and having a symposium like this. But the social function, in my opinion, the big point of a society like this is the personal interaction, the social aspect, and that I don't think that society or technology can ever take away from us, or I hope not. So yes, that is my talk, and I don't know if anyone has got any questions or comments. Thank you.
Are there any questions in the room? I mean, I think it's sad to think that maybe ASSA doesn't have that role of disseminating current research, but I don't know if it's entirely true. I think that finding a trustworthy source for this sort of information.
It seems like the handbook, to have that handbook that is specific to our stuff, that is crucial.
And I think your comment too about the social function. I mean, I think that, you know, being around people, and we see it today, and at other meetings, like that's actually what inspires people to continue their interest.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. So now we have a bit of a change of pace. We got a proposal from Vincent Oakhart, who's joining us from Kenya, to talk about some of his research, and he's joining us over Zoom. So this is not directly related to ASSA, but